This is the Unvarnished Truth. I'm Travis Sloan. Subject of the day's video is going to be, in my opinion, the decision by President Harry S. Truman to drop the 2 atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki to end World War II was the best decision ever made. Now, there's a lot of these revisionist news people and historians and whatever been criticizing that goddamn decision for the last 75 years. This is the 75th anniversary of the day that the bomb dropped on Nagasaki. Well, one thing them people don't take into consideration, and excuse me, is the fact that there are countless generations of people who would probably not be here today had that not been done. And those people include my older brothers, my sister, and myself, because our father was in line to go to that goddamn war. And before any of you people want to start this, talking about thank your father for his service and he's a member of the greatest generation and all that good stuff, let's just nip that shit in the bud. My father was a man just like anybody else, and just because he was involved in something that big, that doesn't make him an automatic candidate for sainthood. And that whole greatest generation thing got started when that clown Tom Brokaw wrote that book many moons ago. I could make a goddamn video on that subject, but that's a subject for another video, and I may make that. But I don't want to get sidetracked here. Let me get back to my main point. Most of the people that talk all this, we shouldn't have dropped the bomb on them people and look at all the suffering it caused and whatever else. The majority of the people that talk all that nonsense, for the most part, probably never been in a fist fight in their motherfucking life, let alone been near a goddamn combat situation. And the only thing that saved my father's life from having to go to that part of the war was the fact that he couldn't see. He couldn't shoot worth a shit. He got drafted in 1945, got sent to some shithole named Camp Fannin in Tyler, Texas. About 5-6 weeks into basic training, he couldn't hit a goddamn target, and the drill sergeant asked him, why are you not able to hit these targets? And my father explained to him, I can't see shit. I told him at Fort Leavenworth I was blind as a bat. They didn't want to believe me, and they shipped me on down here. So the drill sergeant says, well, I'm going to tell you what we're going to do. We're going to take you to an eye doctor, and if you're bullshitting me, I'm going to beat the shit out of you after it's all said and done. So eye doctor examined him, discovered he couldn't see. He got shipped to Camp Wheeler in Macon, Georgia. Basically, he completed training around June 1945. He was in line to head to Japan and go to that war. Well, a couple of months, I guess, into his advanced training or whatever, that's when the bombs dropped. Then that forced Japan to announce their surrender on August 15th, and they formally signed a peace treaty on the USS Missouri on September 2nd, 1945. Now, the thing of it is, when you think about this, and I understand people talking about how bad and horrible it was them bombs were dropped, but let's think about this. From the time the Nazis invaded Poland on September 1st, 1939, to the signing of the formal surrender of Japan on September 2nd, 1945, the world was engulfed in a war for 6 years. Now, the European theater was involved for 2 years ahead of the United States, of course, and then, of course, after the bombing of Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941, then the United States became involved in the said war effort. Anyway, a lot of bad things happened during that war. We're talking unspeakable acts of evil and shit, whether it was on the battlefield, whether it was the Nazis committing atrocities against their civilian population, you bring up the Holocaust, all that good shit. That war, and any war in particular, but any war in general, War is just one thing. It's bad. And there's no getting around that, and excuse me. But then the question becomes, and you hear them talking about the United States should have apologized and this, that, and the third. Well, when you have something that big, that's something bad, and that's something horrible, how do you apologize for something like that? How do the Germans apologize for what they did to the Jews and the Gypsies during the Holocaust? I mean, how do you apologize for something that horrific and that awful? Well, we helped Japan get back on their feet, and we forged a good relationship with the Japanese people through the last several decades. And the Germans invited back a bunch of Jewish people who vowed they would never return to Germany after they left the European continent after the Holocaust. People that survived the Holocaust. And they've made inroads in that direction. So I guess by those small gestures that you can say, maybe not a formal apology, but a small gesture, that we've kind of, civilized society's kind of paved some things over. But at this point in time, 75 years past, the world's been through a lot of things. It's been through a lot of changes, technology, you name it. But the one thing we don't do, especially in this country, is teach American history or any history. Let me, say it that way. But the people that were gripe and moan about we shouldn't have done that and this, that, and the third, they need to realize there are several generations of people who would not be here today had President Truman not done that. I might make some other videos about this subject and some things I brought up here. And I want to say this is the Unvarnished Truth. I'm Travis Sloan, and thank you for your time.